Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of SBJ Live. I'm Dan Kaufman with Sports Business Journal. Thank you so much for joining us. This is our Super Bowl themed episode, and I'll flip it to our moderator, Ben Fisher, and our panelists in just a moment. But as with every episode of SBJ Live, I give a few pointers for the audience because those pointers tend to make these go as smoothly and as effectively as possible. So you'll just have to listen to me one more time. If you heard this before, I apologize. Here they are. We want your interaction and engagement, right? This shouldn't be a passive exercise for anyone. We want you guys to be messaging in the chat. Tell us who you are, where you're coming from. That's that chat bubble on the right-hand side. And right next to the chat bubble, you will see a questions bubble. If you hit that questions bubble, that's where you throw your questions in. Don't feel like you have to wait till the end to do the questions. We're going to go about 40 minutes, but don't wait till the end. Put the questions in there whenever they come to you because people can upvote questions. And Ben will take a look and see which question is the most popular and what we can get to. Okay? That is the most important features that I wanted to make sure that I made sure that you all are aware of. And I will now flip it over to our panelists. This is the Desert's super moment, Vegas's most important storylines as the city prepares for Super Bowl. Gosh, what is that even? 58? Good Lord. And we've got great folks to join us here. Sam Joffrey, President and CEO of the Las Vegas Super Bowl Host Committee. Lou Kovacs, President of Marketing North America Octagon. Sean McBurney, Regional President of Caesars Entertainment. And our moderator, SBJ's own Ben Fisher. Ben, the floor is yours. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
It was a great introduction. I think that covers most of the housekeeping. Let me just put another plug in for the questions feature. It's a great way to get you all involved, and we'll try to cycle those in as we can. Sam, Lou, Sean, I think there's a lot of different questions here, but I think mostly we're going to focus today on the fact that this is the first time for the Super Bowl in Las Vegas. It's not every year. We've got a city doing this for the first time, and it's not just any city doing it for the first time. It's a city that is almost universally regarded as a great underutilized asset in sports and entertainment, at least in recent history, although the city is rapidly catching up. We'll get all of you into the mix very quickly, but I think a logical place to start is with Sam from the host committee of the Las Vegas Super Bowl host committee, who is really into the nuts and bolts of making this all happen. Sam, if you could maybe briefly take us through what the host committee really does and where the line is between your work and the NFL's work in setting this all up. And what makes Vegas different? You did this for a long time in New Orleans, so why is this a unique operating environment?
It's actually pretty interesting that we're 2 years into this thing, and I'm still explaining to locals what a host committee is and what we do. There's a lot of assumption that we're part of some traveling circus of the NFLs, or we're NFL staff, or we Raiders staff, or we Allegiant staff. No, we're part of the process of hosting a Super Bowl is as soon as you get through the bid process and you're, knock on wood, able to get it awarded for your city, you have to create a separate 501c6 nonprofit organization called the Las Vegas Super Bowl Host Committee in our case. And we are the entity, the full-time staff that then signs the contracts with the NFL, secures all the venues, and starts to work on fulfilling all those obligations and promises we made during the bid process. So it's a separate entity altogether. Once we've gotten through that fundraising phase, then we have a staff structure that mimics a committee structure alongside it. We've got about 15 staff. We've got 13 committees that follow those obligations of the bid process. So we have a transportation committee. We have an events and operations committee, a volunteer committee, a PR committee. Each one of those committees has about, on average, 30 of the best of Las Vegas professionals volunteering their time to then help our staff make sure that we get it right and that we're representing Las Vegas's best interest in this whole equation. Sometimes we joke that we're really kind of like a wedding planner between the NFL and Las Vegas and I won't say who the bridezilla is in that equation, but we're definitely representing Las Vegas's best interest in all this because we want to make sure that our main mission is to make sure that on Monday or Tuesday after the game, everybody is saying that was awesome. How fast can we bring the Super Bowl back to Vegas? And that's the NFL owners and media and fans and sponsors. But we also want to make sure that Las Vegas is saying that was awesome. How fast can we get the Super Bowl to come back here? So we are the conduit to the community's impact and making sure that this is a win-win for everybody. So those are the two parts of the equation. That it's a small little mission statement, but that's our real goal in this, is to facilitate, collaborate, communicate, and make sure that there's a direct tie to the destination on this event.
That's really helpful. It makes a lot of sense because the NFL and the Raiders are obviously busy executing a season, but
Exactly.
a billion things have to happen in the background to get up to this point. So that makes some sense. So, so let's open that up to Lou and Sean too. That question about, fundamentally what is different about Las Vegas. The Super Bowl, to a certain extent, is a routine. It happens every year. There's a game plan. The NFL is really darn near perfected, but it's at a different city footprint every year. And those cities vary dramatically in geography and economics and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So let's start with you, Lou. At Octagon, you're advising a number of sponsors and other entities there. Tell us a bit about, what makes Vegas stand out to you.
Historically, Vegas has been a bit of an enigma as a marketing market, right? But despite its rapid growth, most of the activation opportunities were traditionally geared towards out-of-towners, tourists who were visiting for gaming, culinary, entertainment options. But in recent years, with the arrival of the Raiders and the Golden Knights, residents now have teams, and of course there have been lots of other major events that have started to come to the city. So for some brands, Vegas has become an important market and a place to use sponsorship to target locals, in addition to, or even instead of, visitors. I think the other thing also just about Super Bowl in general and Vegas specifically is you're going to see just a massive population of industry executives across sports, entertainment, marketing, media, probably more so this year than any other, that would traditionally travel in to the week leading up to the game. So we'll be working with, our clients on B2B networking opportunities to explore new partnerships, new technology offerings. It presents a great opportunity from that perspective.
Just to start, I'd say, Sam has done a phenomenal job in the host committee. They've been great partners, collaborating with the city to execute what is going to be the biggest event in the history of Las Vegas. This town was born to host the Super Bowl. It's a town that's based on celebration and fun, and there's no other city like it in the world. When you think about the fan experience and you go to these marquee sporting events, one of the biggest detractors to the guest experience is the inability to get around and to transit. Las Vegas is such a convenient city. From Caesar's Palace to the airport, it's 5 minutes. You can effectively walk to the stadium from the Strip. So it's a city of convenience. The access, the ability to travel is unmatched. But really, there's so many other experiences that you can bolt on to the core experience of the Super Bowl itself. Lou spoke about a lot of celebrities in town, a lot of celebrity activations, and you'll see a quantity and quality of content that I don't think any other city in the world would be able to put together.
Yeah, that makes a really good point. Lou, you said that there's more travel from the sports industry coming in this year. I guess, that doesn't surprise me, but also doesn't everybody go to every Super Bowl?
I think you've got a unique confluence given, just given the city, the game, the matchup, and then also, I'm sure Sean can talk to it, just the amount of competition for folks who are, in terms of building an audience around sports betting. I just think you got a lot of topics converging all at once. Plus, Vegas is, generally on the forefront of new technology, and new things that, that brand marketers in particular may want to see or explore. So a lot of client interest in the Sphere and how that works and how they could be using it. Maybe not necessarily at Super Bowl, but certainly, down the road for future activations.
Right. That makes sense. So how many, I don't know if this is the right way to frame the question, Lou, but of all your clients that you're advising on this, how many people are coming in terms of, from a hospitality roster standpoint?
This year we've worked with one league partner. We've got several brands that have multiple team partnerships. We've also got, we're currently helping brands explore new league and team partnerships. So we'll look to use time in Vegas to progress those conversations. I mean, across client programs, it's several hundred guests across hospitality programs, and then a good amount of managing PR, social, and influencer campaigns for multiple clients.
Okay, interesting. Sean, let's go to you and drill down a little bit on Caesars in particular. You're the NFL's first official casino partner. You're one of the official sports betting partners. Where does this week fit into the context of your overall relationship with the NFL? I know any proper sponsorship is a 24/7, 365 thing, but this is the big time. I mean, this isn't the right way to ask the question, but maybe it's a way to frame it in your minds. I mean, what percentage of the overall value of those deals comes this week when everyone's on your home turf?
Yeah, we talk a lot about, big events in Las Vegas as being the Super Bowl of insert content. This is the Super Bowl. So, it's a big weekend. It's the biggest stage in sports. It gives us a platform to talk about all the improvements that we've been making to our properties, hundreds of millions of dollars of renovations since COVID. So it's certainly great to talk about that. But the reality is this is such a valuable partnership that gives value throughout the entirety of the year. So we're excited about the Super Bowl. An extraordinary amount of planning has gone into it. We're excited to show off what we've been doing. But it's a partnership that really delivers value throughout the entirety of the year.
Sure. Sam, from the host committee standpoint, as an operator, how does this compare to New Orleans? You were involved with this sort of thing for a long time there, a city that has been hosting Super Bowls almost from the beginning. What stands out to you in terms of the different challenges and opportunities in Vegas?
Boy, I got my audio feed back just in time for the last part of that question, so I'm pretty sure that you're inquiring about the uniqueness of Vegas and the challenges and opportunities there.
Yeah, and I thought you would have a particularly useful position to discuss that, given your experience in one of the original Super Bowl host cities in
It's funny you put it that way because people ask all the time about what are the challenges with doing the Super Bowl here, and I always say, well, we don't call them challenges, we call them opportunities, and sometimes we're calling opportunities challenges. So if you even back up to the bid process. Unlike any other host city, when we sat down and started to look at the core needs that the Super Bowl has for venues and hotels, usually in a city like any other city, you start with a convention center and you say, okay, we've got enough convention center space. NFL knows they can put their fan fest here, their media center, their X, Y, and Z here at the convention center, and then you build the plan out from there. Here in Vegas, we had 4 different options for that with the millions and millions of square feet of convention center space here. We were able to look at that and say, okay, do we put it here? Do we put it here? Or do we build it out here? Opportunity, challenge, you can debate the two because you with each scenario, then you have to start building all those other plans around it. But certainly the infrastructure here is amazing and an incredible asset for hosting major sporting events. Not to mention when you've got, a headquarters hotel like Caesars, for example, it's a city within a city. Security, they're hosting our special event venues. They're integral part of our security plan. They're an integral part of our transportation plan, an integral part of the hotels and housing, obviously. Whereas in most cities, the hotels, the headquarters hotel serves as sleeping rooms and maybe a ballroom or two for an event. But here, we've got multiple cities within cities that are all part of this effort to host Super Bowl. So we've got those different security teams and those different transportation experts, and it's really a very different model than anywhere else.
I can see that. It's good to have options, but those are options and those are things to work through. Whereas in another city, it might just be one place for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Speaking of things that are both an opportunity and a challenge, Sean, your point about the earlier point about the wraparound entertainment that's available is always, from the moment somebody first suggested that maybe the Raiders have moved to Vegas, it made a lot of sense to me because, would I travel for a random road game for my team? Maybe not. But if you back a Vegas weekend around that, now you're talking. That's a pretty good weekend. That's a good thing, but is it a challenge at all? The Super Bowl owns cities it's in usually, but there's other things going on in Vegas at all times. And the weekend of the Super Bowl is the Lunar New Year, for instance. So there are going to be people there who are there for reasons other than the Super Bowl, which is a little bit unusual. I guess mostly that's for you, Sean, but also Lou, tell me about that dynamic. I assume that means prices are higher, or crowds are a little bit more. does the Super Bowl not necessarily being everyone's first priority change the strategy here at all?
Sure. You want to go first, Sean?
Sure. Yeah. We're excited about this. Lunar New Year is always a critically important week for us. And the reality is that falling on top of Super Bowl is exciting. We're going to have customers that are going to get to experience a Super Bowl for the first time in their life, and in some ways experience professional American football for the first time. And so, we really see that as an opportunity. When we talk to our customers that are coming from Asia, they're excited about what it's going to be like to be in Las Vegas during the Super Bowl. So I think it's great for football. I think it's great for the guests. I think it's great for Las Vegas.
Yeah, I would agree with all that. And I think for brands, Vegas presents, a pretty distinctive operational landscape. On the plus side, there are all of those entertainment opportunities to think about and connect with. You can use them to create really great brand experiences. You can elevate, customer hosting program. The challenge lies in just the sheer scale of options that people will have, when they're in town, and then how are you going to break through and ensure that you get the right guests to participate in your program. I do think that similar to New York, the city, the Strip, it's so big. There's so many things going on. It can swallow up an event even as significant as the Super Bowl, and that's unlike what you've seen with other first-time cities. Demand for tickets, demand for great locations to activate, whether it's B2C or private B2B events has been a challenge in a good way. I think that's a good you want to see that type of demand because that clients are going to get the value out of executing those types of programs. But there's definitely significant demand for locations, for access, for all those types of things.
And I would say what we see, it's not an either or. Either I'm going to go to the game and do official events, or I'm going to engage in all of the activations that are happening organically in Las Vegas. The reason so many people like to come to Las Vegas is because they do a little bit of both. They're able to bolt on these experiences that you just can't get in any other city to whatever the core experience, in this case, the Super Bowl is, that's driving them to the market. So that's, I think, really a competitive advantage of the city.
Yeah. Makes sense. And we hit on proximity earlier and the convenience. I think that proximity also creates challenges and opportunities. Challenge from the perspective that people are going to want, access and inventory to venues, to opportunities that are, within a walk, from major properties to the stadium. But then opportunity, because there's just so many cool, interesting places to do things that, if you take a creative approach to it, you can turn in a venue into something completely different than what it's used for, outside of Super Bowl week.
So on one hand, I'm hearing extraordinary demand, and that means high costs. On the other hand, I'm hearing 4 major convention centers, this extraordinary richness of entertainment inventory. How does that all net out? Is this a much more expensive Super Bowl for your clients, Lou?
I think, certainly right now, if you're trying to secure tickets last minute, the cost is going up and up. I think, good thing about the Super Bowl and, a lot of planning that you would do is, you've got advance notice. You have a few brands also that were also in Vegas for Formula One. So the planning for both of those started, long ago, and we're able to, in some cases, bundle purchases for both events to drive some efficiency. But listen, to create a hospitality program, to create a consumer activation program around Super Bowl, I think clients go into that knowing that it's going to be expensive, and you have to just evaluate the cost benefit analysis on it, given the size of the crowd and your ability to use the Super Bowl as a platform.
But I would say it's Super Bowl in Las Vegas is accessible. There's a variety of different hotels at different price points. Still with availability, it's not like the city's sold out. You can't get a room. There's still accessible rooms. And if you don't have a ticket and you're not able to go to Allegiant, there are so many different viewing experiences you have in the city. So you get to feel the energy, you get to feel the celebration. We've got 20 different viewing experiences within Caesars alone, from Monte Cristo Cigar Bar to Gordon Ramsay Pub and Grill. And Gordon will be there, and Guy Fieri will be in his restaurant, and Bobby Flay is going to be in his. So you get these experiences that are accessible at a price point that's more accessible than buying a ticket to the Super Bowl, but it's also executed at a really high level with celebrity. And I think that's important to note. It's not just an event for the extremely affluent. It is accessible to a broader spectrum.
And that's one takeaway I hope that visitors that are coming for Super Bowl get, or through the TV broadcast, that see what Vegas is like on any given Super Bowl weekend. If you're coming for the Super Bowl here and you've never been to Vegas on Super Bowl weekend, you're probably going to leave here going, maybe we ought to think about coming here next year, because to Sean's point, the amount of viewing parties, the amount of VIP events that are going on a regular basis around Super Bowl, it's a very special place to be. And now we're putting the actual Super Bowl on top of it, which is pretty epic.
Right. Sam, that's one of the most interesting dynamics of the Las Vegas Super Bowl that I've really dug into over the last couple of months, is this opportunity cost question, that the Super Bowl requires a lot of effort and a lot of money, but without the Super Bowl, you still have a heck of a big weekend in Vegas, just people watching and betting the Super Bowl. Does that mean the bar is higher for the NFL? I mean, it's almost inverted of what we assume, that cities are desperate to have the NFL, but is this actually putting the pressure on the NFL to make sure it's worth it for you?
No, I think at the end of the day, it's going to be a pretty easy formula to look at. Super Bowl weekend is traditionally the second biggest weekend of the year here in Vegas. Now if I come to you and say, how would you like to be the biggest weekend of the year? It's a no-brainer. It's a plug and play. We're able to kind of just shoehorn in Super Bowl to make sure that happens, but the amount of spend that's going to happen is certainly going to be at a different level than any year. And I think Sean can probably talk about that from a resort side, but it was a well-calculated decision to say, and there was a lot of thought around that, and there was a lot of questions asked about that. But I think when we phrased it up as incremental, let's make it the biggest weekend of the year, or maybe the biggest weekend of all time. We'll see. That quickly helped them come to the decision that, let's bid. Let's do it.
Yeah, I think Sam's exactly right. It'll be the biggest weekend ever, full stop. And we'll prove that out over the next few weeks. But all leading indicators are this should be a record-breaking weekend in the history of Las Vegas, and we're certainly really excited about it.
Great. So we've got one question.
We also have a lot of metrics to look at. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I would say it's likely going to be record-breaking across many verticals of the business. So obviously, you can expect a lot of sports betting. That should be a wagering record, I would imagine. But you're going to see records in hotel. You're going to see records in food and beverage. So there's certainly a gaming and gambling aspect to this. Make no mistake. But there's a broad spectrum of customers that are spending in different ways. So we should see a rising tide across many different verticals of the business.
Great.
You nailed it. That's exactly what I was going to tag on. Is that another unique thing about Las Vegas are all those different verticals that come into the equation. It's not just hotel rooms. It's not just restaurants. It's a whole nother scale.
I think it's easy for me sitting over here on the other side of the country to not appreciate just this depth and variety of options here. The Super Bowl is not displaced things. It's on top of the business that's still going to run just fine. It's not as if you had to choose between other things. So one question here from the audience. We'll start making some of these in. I think this is for Sam best. I'm interested to know how the NFL and the host committee are managing equal opportunity for all operators and sponsors, non-location and other activation partners cutting deals directly. Is this a strategy to leave it loose and wide open?
What was the last part of it? Is it a strategy to what?
Well, is this part of this? And, we discussed this to some extent. And the question was this a strategy to leave it loose and open?
Not sure I quite follow the last part of the question, but
focus on the equal opportunity question.
Yeah, there's certainly a very concerted effort with the Business Connect program to connect all those local vendors, all those NFL vendors and contractors with our local providers here through the Business Connect program. A couple hundred members of participating members of that who for the past year have learned about this whole ecosystem of major sporting events that are getting ready to come. So that's part of the legacy of what we're doing with this first Super Bowl is, maybe not every local contractor is going to get work directly for the NFL, but what we're hearing from them is that we're getting contacted by the third-party events. We're getting contacted by the sponsors that are coming to town. So there's definitely a very concerted effort there to make sure that we're engaging locally and in a diverse fashion.
Great. And another question here from the audience that is one of the questions I was going to ask. It's always a nice surprise when we've got someone's reading my mind. Another major event in Las Vegas for the first time was the Formula One, the Grand Prix. I think, Lou, this is a good place to start with you. To what extent are your sponsors' experience with the Formula One event instructive for this week? And what are some of the lessons learned and maybe, first-time lessons that you can avoid having to learn those lessons again?
Yeah, I think a few things, Ben. It's a good question. First, we've talked a little bit about, clutter and noise. That was certainly the case, for F1. So having a very strong strategic and creative foundation, whether that's going to be for consumer activation or private VIP hospitality, you need a theme or a hook for your programming before, during, and after the event. We've talked about location and proximity as a plus, but I still think location, getting in early on location. Focusing on the ease of logistics was a key, and then applying some creativity. Think about non-traditional, non-official locations. Given the variety of venues in the city, there's just a lot of opportunity to be creative. And then the last thing is around if you're going to be in, be all in and have a multi-channel plan for what you're going to do. Brands used Vegas and the F1 race as a backdrop to, tell stories about their brand or their products, and really combined, experiential, technology, influencers, celebrity, and media. And you're going to need to do the same thing around Super Bowl. Also, the amount, Sean talked about it earlier, just the amount of celebrities who will be in town, influencers who will be in town. So partnering with the right people in that space to drive foot traffic in market or to create content to extend, the reach beyond Vegas, are things that we saw were really effective around F1 and will definitely apply to Super Bowl.
And I would just add,
go ahead.
Yeah, I just add to Lou, one of the biggest concerns people broadly had about the F1 race was the ability to navigate the city. We're shutting down streets. How are people going to be able to transport to wherever they want to go? You fast forward to the end of that was one of the best aspects of the race.
Yeah,
having been to a lot of them, your ability to navigate Las Vegas while that race was happening was, I think, one of the best selling points of that race going forward. What does that mean for the Super Bowl? If we did really well with F1 when we were having to shut down a lot of roads for long periods of time, boy, it should be even better for the Super Bowl and your ability to navigate the city, which, when you're hosting these big events, is oftentimes one of the biggest detractors of the fan experience is just your ability to get from point A to point B. And that's, every expectation should be that that's going to be really exceptional.
That's another crossover there with F1 and the Super Bowl from an operational standpoint was the takeaway and what was designed as a communication and collaboration platform with the county. So the county obviously plays a large role in that traffic planning, public safety, permitting, everything that has to happen for these events kind of came together and gelled during the F1, which we were able to come right out of and roll them right in the Super Bowl to start the same level of collaboration back as early as November, once they all got a little nap after the event.
That's great to hear about the navigating the city. I think about that constantly when I'm going in and out of major sporting events that, once you're in the bowl, everything is perfect, but then it's, it's hard to say what happens to you between there and your hotel room. And if you can be sure that's an A experience or at least a B+ experience, that goes a long way toward making everybody happy and wanting to come back, I'm sure. One other question from the audience. I guess this is for you, Sam. What role do the Raiders play in this as a team at this point? Much of any? I mean, it's their stadium, of course. Well, it's the Authority Stadium. But what do they do here?
I guess at this point, and it's fair to back up a little bit. They're absolutely instrumental in bringing a team to Las Vegas, which is the first step to host the Super Bowl.
Sure.
Building an amazing first-class stadium, the second step. They were joined at our hip throughout the bid process, and now they're joined at our hip with the host committee. So their staff is integrally involved in everything from our hospitality committees to our media and PR efforts. I think they have their staff on just about every one of our committees, including administrative and legal support. So they're providing a lot of sweat equity. And as the host team, obviously they're welcoming their rivals into their building as a practice site. And managing that. And they're very integral. As a matter of fact, the team president, Sandra Douglas Morgan, was a co-chair on my committee for over a year before she joined the Raiders. So there was a great partnership and continuity that continued there when she kind of took on that position and further helped supporting the host committee. So they've been incredible partners throughout.
That's really helpful. And taking that step back, I think, that's part of the original explanation of the host committee is where you start and the Raiders end. So that's really useful background there. Does the matchup much matter to your business assessment of things? I guess Lou and Sean, that's primarily for you, I think. But, we've got this matchup and there's a lot of talk about, Detroit or Buffalo coming in and, the unique power of those fan bases. But what do you make of the one we got? It doesn't much matter, the difference between the best and the worst matchup you might get.
Well, we're excited about it for sure. I think, obviously San Francisco is a great feeder market for Las Vegas, so the proximity to get here is attractive. But we certainly like the matchup that we have.
Yeah, I think the matchups are interesting year to year in our business, Ben, driven more so by like client headquarter locations and proximity, right? So if you have a client that's headquartered in San Francisco or Kansas City, your week just got a lot tougher. And so aside from that, I think, generally speaking, a big hospitality program, where you're hosting people from different parts of the country, the matchup will drive some interest, but yeah, it really comes down to like, affiliation, maybe with the leadership team at a client, based on where the headquarters market is, and then that would drive it. So, if you're in that situation, I've been in that situation, it makes for a tough week.
So tough week. Everybody is now asking you for a ticket if you've got a client.
Or if it's the hometown team of a corporation, and they're a sponsor, there's already a lot of interest, and now there's even more interest, and you're going to get probably more C-suite engagement than you would get during if the matchup featured just a different set of teams. So it makes for an interesting week when that's the case.
I bet.
It also really depends on the stakeholder, and those matchups play different parts of the equation for different stakeholders, whether it's TV ratings or if it's us operationally knowing that a team has been there the past few years and knows the drill and knows how to come into market and do their team parties and entertain their people, versus someone who might not have been here in forever. The phone rings for certain teams prior to the championship game, and you get a head start on some stuff with some teams. It really depends on the stakeholder and what their priorities are with the matchup.
Makes sense. What about the capacity of the stadium itself? This might be the smallest stadium by the time we'll see how many seats they've killed, but it's going to be close to the smallest stadium to host a Super Bowl in a very, very long time. I think that says a little bit about the market, that the Raiders are still the second highest revenue producing team in the NFL, despite having a smaller stadium, about just the proliferation of premium offerings and the demand for that. But what has that meant for you, Lou, and Sean as planners who, have maybe more people to make happy than you're able to? Is that a relevant factor, or is the world bigger than the game tickets themselves?
Well, I think we spoke about it a little bit, where you've got all of these different types of viewing experiences in the market. So that helps. I mean, the reality is you never have enough tickets. Everybody wants to be able to get to the game, but in Las Vegas, you just have these other viewing experiences that other cities aren't able to execute at that same level. So, when you get into a ballroom with 3,000 people and there's a big play and you hear people yelling, it feels like you're at the stadium. The energy is unbelievable. So, we've got a unique ability to create really high energy viewing experiences and have done that for a long time.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Regardless of the size of the stadium from one year to the next, getting the right inventory to support client programs is going to be a challenge, particularly if we're talking about, B2B VIP customer hosting, where those guests are accustomed to getting the best locations for other events. But I agree with Sean. There's also a level of creativity that you could bring in a lot of cities, and in Vegas in particular, to create great experiences for people that don't necessarily involve going to the game.
Great.
Hey, Lou, send them to me because I still have some premium offerings I can offer up from here at the last minute. So
Really? Huh. Well, would you accept bidding in the chat bar there, Sam?
Venmo.
Yeah. Flash your Venmo QR code and see just how high the market will go for this, right?
Yeah, we have some very limited inventory left from our sponsorship effort that we held back until the two teams were announced. So to that point, when somebody does get into a panic mode, that we can assist on the sponsorship side with the host committee still. Even though we don't have a lot of time to put their logo on a T-shirt or recognize them at a lot of events, but we can still do a couple of things to make it special, including some hospitality and some access to hotel rooms and things like that.
So. That's interesting by itself. The last minute market, right? I suppose that's a pretty common strategy, right? You hold back a little bit until the teams are announced, and you see, it makes sense. So I think we've probably got time for one more question, and then Dan will jump back in. I think this is mostly for Sam, but Lou and Sean, from your perspective, curious to hear about the future. And this question comes in and it says, "What is the strategy for the Super Bowl in Vegas post-event? How are you going to keep the experience fresh in the minds of stakeholders, fans, supporters, businesses, and regular folks?"
Well, from a host committee standpoint, we certainly hope that our legacy of the Super Bowl is going to be, not just the trees we planted or the parks we worked on, but we're hoping that the host committee structure becomes a legacy, because it becomes such a integral part of the community that, if nothing else, the fact that we've now laid a foundation for hosting these major events, whether it's going to be a Final Four, a college football championship game, all those major events require a host committee moving forward. They might be called a local organizing committee, or they have different nomenclature to them all. But the blueprint is now in place, and where we came into the bid process and had nothing to draw from, in New Orleans would have had 10 years worth of transportation plans and public safety planning to kind of tweak and keep making it better. This was our first, so we're not going to get it all right. We know that, but we will have terabytes of data and plans and maps and drawings and everything to make sure that we have the ability to tweak it later. So hopefully we're going to keep this community engaged in the business of hosting major sporting events and being part of that effort to make sure that Vegas continues this streak on forward.
Right. Sean, Lou, anything to weigh in there from your sponsors or your own perspective?
We're in the business of hosting these large, complicated events. Certainly none have been as large as this, but this is what we do, and we want this to be the gold standard by which all their Super Bowls are measured. Sam and his team have done a phenomenal job, and the entire market's rallied behind this and put their best foot forward on the biggest stage in sports. So we that is certainly what we hope to execute here.
Great. Yeah, I look at it from a learning standpoint. Ben, you asked kind of what do we learn around F1. This will be another opportunity to learn around a huge event in Vegas, and then there are going to be more, as Ben pointed out. That Sam pointed out, and so it's a learning opportunity for us, and then sharing that information with clients to make the work that we do better for them on a go-forward basis.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's a great place to end it, because I think it's pretty safe to say that this won't be a one-off. This will become a fairly regular occurrence for the NFL to bring the Super Bowl back here, assuming it all goes well over the next couple of weeks. Jerry Jones himself said that to me the other day, that this looks like a great place to keep hosting the Super Bowl. So we'll come back next time for that, if that comes to be, and then we'll talk about lessons learned from number one. So thank you, Sam, Lou, Sean, Dan, back to you.
Thanks, Pat.
Yeah, no, I was going to say the same thing. We'll hope to have these guys back at that point. To the audience, thanks so much for joining us. We have another episode actually tomorrow of SBJ Live. If you'd like to join that, I'll drop a link in the chat right now. Sean, Sam, Lou, thanks so much for your time. We couldn't do it without you. Best of luck. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Okay. Oh, it didn't end abruptly for me. Let me see.